Okay, time to find a great funny way to start my YouTube video today. Mm, you know what? I think I'm good. Bum, 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 ba-da-dum. Time for Orville Season 3 reviews. Welcome, true believers. Join me once again in the 25th century aboard that valiant starship, the Orville. That's right, we're talking about Season 3 New Horizons. Somehow we're all the way up to Episode 4 already, entitled Gently Falling Rain. And before I get into the episode, two quick notes. I do go into story elements and spoilers, so if that's not your thing, please bow out and come back after you've seen the episode. Or if you don't care, please stay tuned and we'll go through what happened. Secondly, this episode does deal with some very, very hot button topics that are incredibly in the news this very moment. In fact, if I didn't know any better, I would think this episode planned to hit 24 hours before these events just went into hyperdrive. Obviously, that's not possible. There is no way, no conceivable possible way that these events happened and coincided with this episode that was written and shot and planned years ago, and then delay after delay pushed several more months. It's impossible that the events lined up this perfectly. I do just want to get that out of the way right up front. There are abortion issues in this episode. If that's not something you want to deal with right now, maybe come back after things have cooled down for you a little bit. So, without further ado, we're getting into Gently Falling Rain. Right off the bat, we start out with an image of the planet Krill. Now, the Krill are our enemies turned very, very loose allies. Basically, it's allies of the means, because we need to stop the Kalon threat from destroying all organic life in our region of space. And by teaming up, that's probably the best shot we have at doing this. However, things aren't all hunky-dory. I was going to say sunshine and roses, but that's completely the opposite of anything you'll ever see on Krill. So we see these rallying crowds here. They are being stirred up by some sort of new potential leader, somebody running for their equivalent of president, chancellor, high priest, whatever you want to call it, their highest office of the land on Krill. Somebody is trying to, I guess, radicalize them in so far as the current leadership, the current administration is being too soft. They're relying too heavily on the horrific union, the horrific humans, the people that will wipe out their individual identity by joining this alliance of weak-minded individuals. They need to stay strong. They need to return to Krill roots, that whole sort of thing. And we soon find out this is Taleah. Yes, she was a Krill that has had very close contact with our crew on several occasions, specifically Ed. She infiltrated the Orville and the Union at one point, posing as a human, had a relationship with Ed before all things went south. She was discovered, and Ed, out of the kindness of his heart and hoping for a relationship between our peoples, let her go. And it appears this is how she's intending to repay that kindness. Then after the intros, we cut to Earth. Yeah, that's right. We are seeing Annie, still on probably Broadway, because I believe this does take place in New York. Annie, a beautiful rendition of Annie. This girl did a great job. She's a Zilean. It appears, at least, not necessarily confirmed, but that does appear to be the makeup choice they gave her. And then we see that is a very integrated cast with several different aliens. We've got Dan's species there as well. We've got a couple other interesting looking creatures. I think a Derulio species back there. So I dig this. I did kind of enjoy this. It's nice seeing this whole, actual feel of a community, of a union, of a whole thing. So that was a nice little, there was no need for this to even be thrown in there, like a whole stage production. It was above and beyond what they really needed to do for the scene. And we see here that we have a couple admirals. Actually, I think all of the admirals we have seen up till this point are here, as well as a couple alien delegates. And this blue fella in the middle, he is the president of the Union, who we have never met before, played by Bruce Boxleitner of Tron and Babylon 5 fame. So great to have him back in the sci-fi sphere. He obviously has a pretty distinct voice, so he carried a lot of gravitas in this episode. And then we have the 3 Krill delegates. One of them is the actual current leader of Krill, running for re-election. Turns out he's going to be running against Taleah, who they at this point say has no way of winning. She's just sort of an outlier treading on fear and, blah, 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 that whole thing. So that's kind of the setup for this now. We go back to the ship. They're discussing the treaty, all that stuff. And they say, well, everything's looking good. Why don't you guys come to Krill? You'll be the first Union representatives on Krill ever. And we'll sign the treaty there. How's that sound? We'll do that. We'll shake it out. Absolutely nothing could go wrong. Let's do it. Then we cut back to the Orville. Our crew is on their version of the holodeck, the environmental simulator. They're having a bar crawl through history, a pub crawl through history. They're all the way up to the Old West. This scene here reminds everyone that Bort has had a mustache at one point. Funny, clever, I dig it. And then we've got a cute scene with John and, oh my God, why can I not remember her name? Oh man, this is going to drive me right. Anyways, I keep wanting to say Taleah, but that's the other T name in this episode. Anyways, she's just been promoted. Kiali, that's her name. That's her last name, at least. Taleah Kiali. So she's been promoted to lieutenant commander, and John is hitting on her here. So, a nice little bit of character building. And who are we missing? Who is not in the scene at all? Of course, our wonderful android pal, Isaac. He comes, shimmying in, that's not the word, sauntering in, I suppose. He has a nice quip, very, very reminiscent of Data or something like that, completely getting the meaning of a joke, but not delivering it correctly, so that was a good thing. And now Admiral Halsey calls the Orville to let them know they are going to be escorting this very, very important mission to Krill. Because they helped, do some brokering with the treaty in the past, they're going to be the ship that goes to Krill. They're going to be part of this very important delegation. So they start researching their whole situation, as I mentioned earlier, with the political whatchamacallits. And this is a very, very interesting thing to me. I know some people are probably very upset about it because it's too real world. So they took the whole fake news thing and ran even further. So combining that with a sort of deep fake thing. What's going on now is their computers there, their AI, whatever you want to call it, is consistently and constantly churning out these fake videos of scenarios, of possibilities, of things that never happened in order to, rile up and discredit the opposition. So for instance, they show one of the guy we had met earlier who is, by all intents and purposes, as far as we're concerned, one of the nicer Krill, that shows him basically gassing a whole crowd and killing them, except that never happened. It was just a completely generated false news story, false video of an occurrence created, basically in order to rile up the other population. And this also kind of reminded me a bit like that Star Trek, the original series episode, where instead of having war, the computer just calculated the areas that were hit and people had to report to termination chambers. It reminded me similar kind of evolution of that. So that was kind of a nice little tie-in between that and real world events. Kind of could, current online things could eventually lead to a situation if we keep evolving with the technology we have now that isn't outside the realm of possibility with deep fake technology and things like that of occurring at some point. So now we've got our crew arriving on Krill for the very first time. There's a great shot of them landing. I mean, a lot of this episode is a visual feast as far as sci-fi visuals. A lot of that's obviously not going to be captured in review, so definitely go check that out yourself if you're interested. Here we have a beautiful shot of the statue of Avis, their god. These are a super advanced, relatively warlike, harsh environment race, interstellar race that is very, very, very still interlocked with their religion. Their religion is still their main reason for being, their main guiding principle. Everything they do is in honor and in glory of Avis, this godlike deity here. So that's a very interesting kind of cultural thing A lot of times in sci-fi, when they have these spacefaring peoples, they've all already abandoned religion or moved beyond it, even though that's not necessarily something that needs to be done. Religion isn't necessarily completely distinct from the ability to evolve up to a higher capacity. Anyways, I digress. So now we see the election results are coming in, and everyone is shocked to find out, well, Taleah is actually in the lead. She is going to win. She took a very key district, and game over. Our whole peace treaty was hinging on the fact that we've set up this stuff with the old regime, who is now on the way out. And immediately after these results are in, they take him away. They cart off our buddy and toss our delegation into prison, or at least some sort of holding cell. Not looking great for us. And then you see here, the Orville, still in orbit, suddenly already being attacked by the Krill. They are wasting no time to get what they view as interlopers and lesser beings and, enemies of their state off their planet. They are just done. They're over us. They're trying to, fix things immediately as far as they're concerned. Now, Taleah and Ed had this interesting, for lack of a better term, relationship. She calls him to her office basically just to see if it was actually him. She was hoping he wasn't part of the delegation. She really didn't want to have to deal with him, because she does have some kind of conflicted feelings with him, even though she doesn't really want him to know that. She was hoping that she could eliminate these Union people and not have any sort of second thoughts about it. They have a little conversation, and he is hauled away by her guards. I believe the intention here is she is hoping to get Ed away safely, but everyone else can go to hell and die for all she's concerned. She just wants Ed himself because she has a bit of a soft spot for him to get away. So they go traipsing through the lower parts of Krill territory under guard, and these guards here take them through the seedy underbelly of Krill, for, I guess that's what you could call it. Interesting get up for these, I thought, lizard-like creatures, but apparently they're anatomically humanoid, so good on ya. And then a couple of people jump out, blast, 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 attack the guards, and they abduct Ed, who still basically has no idea what the hell's going on, but he's got no choice but to go with it. I mean, what does he expect? They take him to this being here. This is a hybrid, a half human, half Krill. Turns out this is the child of Ed from back when he and Taleah had that relationship. However, I do want to point out that at that time, don't know if this is relevant to anything, Taleah had genetically altered herself to appear human. So she wasn't fully Krill at that point. I don't know if that's going to play into the reproduction factors of a human and a Krill, if it's only capable of happening because she had gone through these genetic changes to infiltrate the Union, or if that's completely irrelevant and I'm overthinking and I just want to bring that up. Anyways, when Ed meets this child, and, immediately after, I do want to just throw this out there. I do think this is the best, by far, acting I have ever seen from Seth MacFarlane as far as a serious role. I mean, he's, obviously great with voices and comedy, but I think this is for the first time, I've completely been floored by his dramatic, emotional acting. And I'm wondering if it has to do with the fact because it's dealing with a child and something that might be actually personal to him. So just well done there. I do want to point that out because it really got to me because I'm saying because way too much. It got through to me that, wow, this is more powerful than I would typically expect. Not just from Ed, but, from this show in general. Not to throw shade on the floor, on the floor. That's where shade normally is, not to throw shade at the show, but I was, I was very impressed by that. Okay. So he goes back to Taleah. They have a conversation about the child. And here is where we discover the hot button topic of current day America. It turns out she could not, even if she wanted to, I don't know if YouTube will like me saying this, abort the child. They are staunchly against the snuffing out of a would-be life on their planet. It rarely happens. It's against their doctrine. It's against their religion. It's against their just political beliefs that, you're taking a future being and you're removing that future being from the world, to the point of, this is what happens on the off chance that somebody is caught doing such a thing. They take some sort of sophisticated computer program, genetic sampling, and they create a holographic version of that would-be child to basically torment the parents that got rid of it. The child sits there and asks them, why did you kill me? Why couldn't I live? I would have loved you. I would have enjoyed living with you and growing to be a real person, but you've denied me that life. So that's a hell of a punishment. I mean, I don't even know if that's the worst of it. We only got to see this little snippet. Is this something they're going to have to live with? Are they going to have to live with a fake child for the rest of their life? Is it just, I don't know. It's, it's hard hitting as far as a punishment goes. I will give them that. A great sci-fi concept that, kind of hits the point at home. And then the Union sent a whole crap ton of ships, and the Union and Krill fleets, they just start blasting the hell out of each other. I mean, there's no holds bars. You're seeing, right off the bat, ships just being completely destroyed. So that's not going to end well, because remember, we also have this war with the Kalon going on. So now we're using up, half of our defenses, half of the Krill's defenses, and the Kalon are out there scot-free building up an attack force. So, uh-oh. All right, back to the surface, and the president gets stabbed right in the gut. She's going to take out all the prisoners one by one, and starts with the president of the freaking Union. It's not a great choice. That's probably going to start some sort of diplomatic incident, if you ask me. You didn't ask me. I'm just offering an opinion. And immediately after he gets stabbed, a couple of Krill run in, throw some stun grenades, kind of ferry our people out, and they get in some sort of a hover car, I guess, some sort of Krill technology that's their equivalent of their cars. And turns out it wasn't Krill. That's right. It is our valiant doctor and our valiant chief engineer, Claire and John. They have undergone some sort of Krill genetic makeover thing, or at least a surface thing. I don't know. They're made up to look and act like Krill, but they're still our real crew underneath. They were able to sneak in. And I do want to point out, this was a great callback, a great foreshadowing. I don't know how you say this, but very, very early on when things started going south in the episode. I can't remember who it was. Was it Ed or was it Kelly? I think it was Kelly ordered them to do something, like some code word, like, we're going to do such and such. And it was just a throwaway line that never really resulted in anything. 45 minutes later, we find out this is the mission. This is the code word. This is what they sent them to do: infiltrate Krill society in case we needed a rescue mission. So that was a great setup and payoff that was played so well, you almost didn't see it coming. So then we kind of intersperse this on the planet car chase with a giant in-space battle. Ships are being destroyed, like both sides are taking heavy casualties. We're back on the surface. We're having a car chase. They're shooting. They're knocking out our navigation. It's kind of a cool thing. It's a cool action-packed, adrenaline type of build-up to, okay, are they going to get out of this? Are they going to get out of this? Even if they get out of it, is the Orville still going to be in orbit, or is it going to be destroyed? It's tense. I like it. I dig it. It does feel like a very action-heavy element after a couple episodes that were very low-key as far as the action goes. So it is a good payoff if you've been waiting for the action to come back. And then we see that they do get away. As soon as the shuttle docks with the Orville, the remaining Union ships quantum drive right the hell out of there and get back to Earth. And then we've got a bit of a episode wrap up where they basically say this alliance is toast. It's gone. The Krill Union alliance, done. Toast. What's going to happen now? Also, we've got this fact that I have a child, a half human, half Krill child on Krill. Possibly, if she's revealed, going to be put to death, or worse. I'm probably never going to see her again. The Union and the Krill just lost a crap ton of ships. Kalon are at her doorstep. What the hell is going to happen? And then Ed and Kelly share kind of a nice moment. They used to have a relationship. They kind of get each other. She knows how to comfort him. That was a nice, touching scene. It was a nice, poignant way to end the episode without feeling too uncertain about the future, even though we are. It's still, Earth is still there. Earth is still safe for the moment. There's no fires. There's nothing being blown up. There's still a chance. And Ed even says, the alliance is gone, but we must find a way to preserve the peace. And then the very final shot of the episode rather, is just Taleah watching her child on a view screen because she had never actually spent any time with her. She had sheltered her away because of her otherness, her difference, basically she was an outcast of society and she didn't want anyone to judge the child and didn't want it to fall back on her while she's trying to do this, revolutionary type overtaking of the government and returning it to the more old ways. So what an episode, especially to drop like less than 24 hours before this whole Roe v. Wade thing in America hit. Obviously that was probably a worry in as far as when they wrote the episode, but there is no way they could have known the episode would air within 24 hours of that decision coming down. I mean, I want to call it good timing, but it may not have been good timing. It might have been bad timing. It was coincidental timing where the two things just played out at the same time. And I don't know if that's going to be a detriment to the episode or if it's going to help the episode kind of catch on with a more mainstream audience. Also, I think people are going to have a hard time dealing with the fact that this was obviously based on an allegory of the Hillary-Trump election where, no one really thought Trump was going to win. And then, oh my God, how did this happen? I think people are going to have on either side of the issue an issue with the direct correlation of that, because I've already seen people yelling about that online who even admitted they hadn't watched the episode. They just heard it had to do with Trump, so they weren't going to watch it, and they're done with the Orville because, the Orville went woke. Okay, whatever. I mean, if that's how you're going to make up your opinion, then I don't know why you're ever watching the show, to be honest. But anyways, this was kind of a hard one to talk about. So when I went into this season, I was wondering if it was truly going to be a fresh start. And so far, out of the 4 episodes, they really do call back to things we've seen before in earlier episodes, season 1, season 2. So aside from the bigger, better effects, the bigger budgets, the change in outfits, the change in scenery, all of that stuff has changed, but it's still very much linked to the first 2 seasons as far as pertinent details of storylines. So I would not recommend, I know this is the 4th episode of the new season, so who's watching this that hasn't already made up their decision? But I would not recommend watching season 3 without going back to see season 1 and 2 ahead of time. I would be very interested to know if you've only started from season 3 from New Horizons, what you're thinking of it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's very much linked. The humor's toned down. The humor's not as in your face, not as crass, not as overarching as it was before, but it's definitely there in more real moments. There was quite a few little jokes or little quips between people this episode. The only one that seemed vaguely out of place is when they were in jail and, kind of in a tough situation, and Ed said, well, couldn't we at least get coffee? Not that that was out of place, because that seems like a tension-breaking quip, but the rest of them were kind of just well-placed within conversation, and that seems more realistic. And I know people are getting a little upset that they're not going back to the zany hijinks of season 1 especially, but I think it's in service to the stories a lot more so than, forcing a comedic element into something where you're trying to tell these deep issues where maybe we'll have a farcical episode coming up. I don't know. We just had one in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and it went over pretty flat for me, if I'm being honest with that. So I did very much enjoy this episode. I've enjoyed all of the episodes this season so far. I still think 3 is my favorite, but this one had some very, very long-term ramifications. Follow-up from season 1 and 2, as well as the ongoing storyline and the future relations, the future endpoint of where these, I'm going to say these wars, because now we've got the Kalon War. Are we also going to war with Krill now? Because the incident that just happened can't be undersold. I don't know where we're going. I'm excited to find out. I cannot wait until next week. And yeah, I'll leave you with that for now. So like, share, comment, tell me what you hate about this, what you love about this, what you hate about me. Tell me your thoughts on Power Rangers. I don't know. Leave something in the comments. And until next time, peace out.